A huge protest in Canada is having a lot of ramifications in American politics. The protest is a so-called Freedom Convoy of truckers in Ottawa, the Canadian capital. And it started off as a specific protest against a measure regarding cross-border travel. Essentially the fact that truckers had to be fully vaccinated. But since its beginning, it has really morphed into a much bigger protest against COVID-related restrictions generally. And that's where it becomes most relevant to American politics. The protest has been praised by President Trump and a number of other Republican and conservative politicians, also by a number of conservative media figures. And they're picking up on a couple of things. One is just this populist backlash against restrictions, a desire to loosen those restrictions. But they're also pointing out that there was a fundraiser for this protest that was initially hosted by GoFundMe. GoFundMe then pulled that fundraiser down, and that has stirred lots of political debate here in the US as well. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, for example, has said that he wants to investigate GoFundMe over that decision. More broadly, this discussion or debate goes to the whole nature of the polarizing debate about COVID and the restrictions themselves. So these truckers have become a focal point for people who say we need to drop restrictions or loosen restrictions generally. On the flip side, they've also become a focal point to people who think that these kind of protests are being co-opted or used by very far-right interests. And for example, the Canadian Premier, Mr. Trudeau, has pointed to at least one example of a swastika or some kind of Nazi emblem being flown. The protesters say that's unfair, that if there are fringe people there, there may be a very small number, but that the overall thrust of this is a general protest by well-meaning citizens against COVID restrictions. The whole matter is probably going to come to a sharper point in the US because there are already plans for an American equivalent to this. Those plans aren't set in stone yet, but it looks like there will be some kind of convoy leaving California in early March that will be bound for Washington, DC, and that, its organizers hope, will prove another focal point for this anti-restriction sentiment.